Vladimir Putin putting on a propaganda show for the Russian people as he brings more death and destruction to Ukraine. The unhinged dictator holding a rally in a Moscow stadium, boasting about the success of his invasion of Ukraine despite a massive loss of Russian troops. Putin also claiming it was justified.
This is what genocide is all about. It is precisely to save people from this suffering, from this genocide, that is the main reason for the convincing motive and goal of the military operation that we launched in the Donbass and Ukraine.
Show the crowd.
Mike Tobin is in Lviv, Ukraine, with the latest there. Mike?
Well, Judge, the relative peace of the western part of this country was shattered this morning as the sirens wailed and 4 cruise missiles slammed down perilously close to NATO's eastern flank. The target of these airstrikes was a Lviv State Aircraft Repair, which customizes MiG-29 so they could be used by the Ukrainian Air Force. Maxim Kozitsky, who's the regional administrator of Lviv, says 6 cruise missiles were launched over the Black Sea by long-range bombers. 2 of them were intercepted. 4 of them made their way to their target. The Ukrainian Air Force says the Russian X-555s with a price tag around $1 million apiece. It's a desperate situation down south in the town of Mariupol, where the Donetsk Regional Drama Theater was being used as a bomb shelter. It was clearly marked that there were children inside. It was still hit by Russian aircraft anyway. As many as 1,000 people were inside on both the first floor and in the basement. We got reports yesterday that some people got out. Today we are hearing from a politician down there that the rescuers who are attempting to free the people trapped in the rubble are being fired upon by the Russian forces and cannot even get to the wreckage to get people out or determine the extent of the casualties. Mariupol itself has become an apocalyptic scene, with 80% of the housing there destroyed. The people there are resorting to mass graves simply because they cannot handle the logistics of how many dead they have on their hands. The people in that town are leaving, but the humanitarian corridors, they say, are not holding together. The people are desperate enough that they are fleeing under fire, quite literally running for their lives. Judge?
Mike, thanks so much. All right, guys, you know, the juxtaposition of the mass graves and the killing of children and the inability of people, you know, to even wait in line without getting in a bread line without getting shot. It's just amazing. So you've got all we've heard about Putin hiding. Now he's out with about 200,000 people in and around that stadium. And you kind of wonder, is he copying Zelensky now? Or did he think he needed to shore up his support? Is his country, does he need to let them know they're in charge?
There was the anniversary of the Crimea invasion, so you have to hold a big rally. And it was a fake rally. The BBC had a team of reporters inside and said most of these people were public sector employees that were forced to go there by their employer. A bunch of the younger people were told they didn't even know where they were going. They were told, we're going to send you to a concert, and we'll let you go to the concert if you can have off for the day. So they went and they found out it was a Putin rally. One guy gave a quote to the BBC. He said, I'll be here for a while, then I'll leave. I think most people here don't support the war. I don't. And the BBC said most people felt ashamed and embarrassed to be there. So I do feel bad for the Russian people. It's like having your father be a career criminal. It's humiliating, and there's nothing you can do about it. And now this guy's going out there, and he's acting like it's 1945 and just lying his way through a war in 2022. You can't do that. You can't lie about a war in this day and age. It's just impossible. And how humiliating must it be for Vladimir Putin to have to tell all the people around him, these are the lies that we're going to tell, and then you're going to have to taste my food because I'm so paranoid. You all hate me. I think you're going to kill me. That is an insane way to run a country. He must be a complete psychopath to rule a nation in this day and age like that.
Well, anyone who says they're going to demilitarize a country because of Nazism when the president is Jewish, I mean, it's not so to begin with.
Preposterous.
But Dagan, I want to ask you this. when he was speaking to that crowd, he quoted the Bible. He talked about Russia prevailing and, against a nation without Nazism. And he stirs up this Russian nationalism. Does this suggest that he's in all the way to the end, that there's no way he's not stopping, and that it's a fight to the finish?
The only way this ends quickly is if something happens to Putin, like a brain aneurysm. I'm not joking, and I'm not going to talk about, well, I'm going to use the word assassination, but that's the only way that it ends. And by the way, since the annexation of Crimea, the ruble has fallen because of the sanctions. It hadn't really come back. Russians are poorer since then. There are visa restrictions. There's less prosperity in the country, but their fidelity to Putin, particularly among older Russians, has not completely been shaken, because Russia, since Putin took over, it was a kleptocracy after the fall of the Soviet Union. It was ruled by criminals. You'd get shot in the street. And so Russia is in better shape than it was. And there is this deep nationalism and a willingness to endure and suffer. Starbucks closing is not a hardship in Russia. In terms of, and I don't want to get too off track, but the Russian people are in part cut off from information because of our technology greats, Google and Apple. They caved to Putin last fall. They were wildly ignorant of what he was capable of, and Google and Apple got threats from Putin's his strongmen, and they took down an app that was designed to get Russians to register protest votes against Putin, that was backed by opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Apple started configuring iPhones that would to make it easier to promote Kremlin-backed social media companies. And also in Russia, you still don't have access to this Apple security tool. It's a feature designed to make internet browsing undetectable. Apple won't offer that to Russians. So they are essentially doing Putin's bidding. And again, so much for the freedom of these technology greats.
All right, Greg, one person who has gotten outside of that is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I want you to take a listen.
Ever heard of him?
Ukraine did not start this war. Neither did nationalists or Nazis. Those in power in the Kremlin started this war. This is not the Russian people's war. This is an illegal war. Your lives, your limbs, your futures are being sacrificed for a senseless war condemned by the entire world.
Go ahead, Greg.
Best work since Conan, I think. I'm actually not kidding. This is, I thought it was pretty impressive. It was very persuasive. It was incredibly well written. And it was also, we've been talking about this idea of face saving and status preservation. And that's what he did for 9 minutes when he was talking to the Russians and talking to Putin, because Putin follows him on Twitter. He has 22 people in one of them. So when you're talking to this country with a deep history, you have to talk about, you're a great people. I love you. He was so polite, so polite. And he also referenced his own flaws. Dad's a Nazi. Whoops.
Yep.
He went overboard on January 6th, but he did that. Not for us. He did it for Russia to say, hey, look, we have our problems, too, and I'm going to call out January 6th, but I'm going to call out this as well. So I thought it was very persuasive. So I go and I text Elena, my wife. She's in Warsaw. I go, hey, what'd you think of that? And she says, it was great. The thing that she loved about it was polite, and she said it made her cry in a way, but to see that how, in a weird way, naive we are to think it would actually matter. And I go, you mean you don't think it would move the needle or have an impact? And she just responded with a number of laughing emojis and a capitalized no. And I thought to myself, I go, you know what? This kind of thing, we believe as Americans it has an impact. That's the best celebrity video you're ever going to get when you think about it. But it's but Russia, they didn't grow up with freedom of speech. They don't have, that's a thing that's not in their blood. So whether this has an impact on them and persuades them, I don't know. The people it does persuade are already there. Young people who have access to the internet, social media, they already get it. But in terms of everybody else, I don't know. But I still thought, I have friends of mine who think it's going to have a big impact. But the Russians who are, to use your phrase, what'd you write? Say ashamed and embarrassed. They are all ashamed and embarrassed, and they're so pessimistic. When I go, this is great. And they're going, Greg, it's too late, for our country. They were like they're sickened.
All right, Jessica, if the West is serious about stopping Putin and, his so-called stopping of genocide in the Ukraine and his celebration of taking Crimea, how can they do it?
Well, it seems that they are making pretty good headway here. I mean, everything that you hear out of this, not out of Putin's mouth, but everyone else's mouth. So U.S. intelligence officials, UK intelligence officials, the polls, what you hear from the Ukrainians, Zelensky and his team, is that they are holding Russians at bay. They have lost thousands of people. He has committed war crimes. Those are huge travesties. But when you think back to how petrified we were about that convoy, remember that was outside of Kyiv, and it was 9 miles long, or it was 13 miles long, and now it's nothing. Right? We don't hear about that anymore. What happened in Mariupol, which I hope that I pronounced correctly, huge travesty. I love to see it. The Greek prime minister, he said, we're rebuilding that hospital because that's where the largest amount of Greeks are in Ukraine. When you see the 3 prime ministers coming from other NATO countries and sitting there with Zelensky in Kyiv, that's important. And when I watched the Putin speech, what I saw was just a man alone. He has no allies to come and stand next to him. There were 4 or 5 countries, right, who backed him up. He couldn't even get the Chechnyan leader to show up to stand there with him. And he couldn't get people from the former USSR.
Scheduling conflict.
And I don't want to say I feel good about democracy's chances here, but it really does feel like it is the entire world against this man. And what we have to do, and why the rhetoric of a video like what Arnold Schwarzenegger made, I think could matter, is decoupling nationalism for Russians from Putin is the important rhetorical trick here, because he is not representing national interests. These are people who have been oppressed from the get-go, and we have to turn the tide on that. And every little bit, if someone sees that video and they pass it to their moms and activate those moms, I mean, the Russian mothers have played a hugely important role in keeping Russia on a good path. And now that they are getting the chance to FaceTime their kids who've been sent over to Ukraine not knowing where they're going, I hope to see more of that kind of activity.
But we need to decouple Putin from the money that's funding the war. And when you have...
These sanctions are hugely effective. I know we can do more, but...
Two-thirds of Russia's economy is not sanctioned, Jessica, not any energy transactions.
You know what, guys?
And that's on Europe. That's on Europe.
One of the things that I think is important is something that you mentioned, and that is we've got 3 NATO leaders who are with Zelensky right now in Kyiv. If we were able to have those 3 NATO leaders, more leaders every day, along with the patriarch from the Russian Orthodox religious community, from the Greek Orthodox religious community, stand there with Zelensky, with all NATO, all the religious leaders, that would have a profound effect on the world in terms of this is diplomacy. If you're going to bomb us, you're going to bomb the churches and you're going to bomb the leaders of NATO. We dare you.
And then you're going to get your nuclear war.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. Anyway, coming up, President Biden talking tough about Russia in a meeting with China. But will the commies actually listen?